Boom boom ba boom bam ba boom bam ba boom bam boom ba dum bum boom bam boom bam bam boom bam bam.
Okay, record.
All right, so we are 4 lines from the top on page Hey. I begin with the word Ho'ilams. After all the Misholim, the Derech and the Tzinoiros, we come back to discussing the Kav. And the principle in that is it does not change, doesn't represent something different than is the truth prior to the Tzimtzum. What the Kav facilitates is that same truth, that same oir, Lifnei HaTzimtzum, should now flow, so to speak, in a narrow pathway. And that flow enables the oilamis to relate to it and to benefit from it. And to have oil, an element of oil is safe. Okay, so this is the 4 lines from the top. In essence, what flows, so to speak, through the Kav is the hamshocha of bechinas oirin seif habligvo, the principal reality of oirin seif habligvo. And I would like that we should kind of get the sense of what that means. You have to understand, when you talk about Oir Ein Sof, Bli Gvul, there is no possibility of accumulating an infinite amount of finite entities. When you say it's Oir Ein Sof Bli Gvul, we don't mean it is a finite oir, but it extends indefinitely. This indefinite, this infinity element comes from elsewhere, not from the finite entity itself, not from the accumulation of the finite entity. The infinity element, even though you're saying the Kav does actually represent these two things, a finite flow, the Gvul, and it's already so Bli Gvul. So the Bli Gvul element is the representation of the source of this oir, not the finite element itself. It actually represents, it actually has the sense of when this is what this is stands for. Like we have always speak about, this is further going to be in this Hemshah, the moshel from the sun, the oir hashemesh. And we always recognize that there is a fundamental difference between sunlight and candlelight. And it's not just in the intensity of the light. It's a totally different message when you have from sunlight than candlelight. Sunlight brings sun itself into the world, into our experience. What is the sun itself? What is sun versus sunlight? Sunlight is that which relates to darkness. It can counteract darkness. It shines in darkness. Sun is that which does not recognize darkness altogether, which is light through and through. The Ein Sof element is the sun element. Because if it were just Oir, then it cannot be Ein Sof. And this is the phenomenal thing, that in the Oir, because of what it stands for and represents, whatever it is, it represents the sun, so to speak. There's fundamental reality, which doesn't know anything else, has only Oir, only positive, no negative. Okay, at this point, this should be, for the moment, enough. And this is what the kav is, even though the oil comes in a tzumtzum, but what? It is not dissociated from its bleak wool source. And one more word in this regard. Hopefully, eventually we'll be able to relate to this principle. We have to understand one fundamental principle. Oir emanates only from an etzem. Oir, like we say, the energy of oir, the physical oir, that's not oir. Oir means that that there is the fundamental reality. It is light because it has to be light, not because I'm making light. That exists and that emanates only from an etzem, something that is a fundamental and a truth. Because oir emanates exclusively from an etzem, therefore wherever oir is found, immediately recognize, oh, there's an etzem element in this. This is the Ein Sof applicable. As I said, this is still going to be discussed many times, but just want that we should understand these words. And as it is known, the hakav yesh boy Beis in yonim hafochi, that the kav contains two opposite aspects. Vehu, and that is ma shehu b'bchinas kav hamidah. On the one hand, the kav has the qualities, the aspect of kav hamidah. It is like a yardstick, a measuring stick. Shenois in midah v'kitzvah, that provides a measure and a end, a limit, a boundary. Be'efen hamshoch es ha'oires v'ha'kelim, in the manner, in the mode of the oires v'kelim, how the oires and kelim are nimshach, how the oires and kelim are provided. V'hu inyan hatzinoires hamistafim and hakav. And this is again, in fact, the tzinoires. There's a sub-pathway, sub-conduits. Hamistafim and hakav, that branch off from the kav. The hainu b'midido. And what is the principle that there is sub pathways, or sub conduits? Why don't you need more? Why are there many subduits? Because each one is a separate measure. This comes to the medida, the measure of how the Tfiras HaChochma should be. And what is the measure that is applied, as example, Tfiras HaChochma, the oil of the Tfiras HaChochma? What should be the oil and what should be the keli? Shehakoil nimshach umizhavim min hakav, because everything is drawn from the kav. So this is the pshat that the kav provides a measure, and this measure is represented in the particular sub-conduit. narrower path that exposes exclusively Chochmah and not Bina, and not any other quality. That's a focus on the Inyan HaChochmah. And what should be the manner of Sfiras HaBina? In overall, now to give a general statement about the function of the kav. Hamshochas hakav hu, the hamshoch of the kav is hamsdido be'izaif ni o elements vayishtalshus bichlal. The measure, what should be the represented in world and ishtalshus. This is the inyan from hamshochas hakav. The Harei since that, what is the necessity of having that measure and defining what should be the manner how oilam and world should be? So the principle behind this is this: mitzad oilam soif boruhu. From the perspective of Ayin Soif itself, Harei I want to interject over here. Mitzad Ayin Soif Baruch Hu. This Baruch Hu is again alluding and relating not to the oir, but to the etzem itself. And because oir is a direct representation of the etzem, that's why there is the inyan from Baruch Hu. Darei mitzad oir soif Baruch Hu, harei hoye yochel li is klolos hayishtalshelus. So from that perspective, there could have been the entire hishtalshelus bei von acher legamri, in a totally different manner. V'nimdad, but it was measured liyez be'efon kach v'kach, that it should be in a given manner, not in any other manner, but just in this manner. Mitzad oil in soif, it could be in multiple ways. Shezeho hamshachas hakav biklal. This medida, this measure that defined what the world should be like, that is Hamshochas HaKav. Just to give us a little bit of a handle, what does it mean? It could be in many different ways. We have, in Ishtalshelus, in the world, we have 10 spheres. 10 spheres is the defining factor in Ishtalshelus assigned to it by the Kav. By the Kav Hamida. It did not have to be 10 spheres. It could be 11 spheres, it could be 9 spheres. As a matter of fact, it could be any number of spheres. The reason that there are 10 is because in the Kav there is this, the Kav provided this measure. So the Ayin Sof, it could be any number of spheres. V'hatzineires protim, and these individual tzinoires conduits, hu hamdida protius, that provides the specific medida, such as medida for chokhmah, medida for bina. So the Kaf provides the overall measure of a Seder Ishtalshelus such that there is going to be 10 spheres. And then there are individual offshoot conduits that provide a definition of each one of these spheres. V'harei, thus we see, she'amdida v'hagbolo himin hakav. This, that the measure and the limiting aspect that exists in Seder Ishtalshalos, that comes and is assigned by the Kav. We'll finish this whole thing and we'll go back a little bit and discuss it. But then also there's another thing. Similarly, Kol Bechinas Yichud, any aspect of Yichud, of unity, unification, V'hiskal Lusibes and the incorporation amongst the Esesphires, V'yichudam Bimkoiron, and their reunification with their source, Hu alidei hakav, is also via the kav. This is what we started off in the starting point over here, that the kav provides two opposite aspects: the distinct element and the measure and the limits of everything, and then the reincorporation and the unity within among themselves and with their source is also from the kav. K'maimer, and as the statement in the Zohar, beyond who the kosher lane or miyachid lane. And means you, means the Ayin shape. Who the kosher lane, you bind them to each other. Umiyachid lane, and you unite them. Shezehu has his kasha. This refers to his kashas as firas be'erin sev hamatzil. This refers to the fact that the spheres are bound with the oinus of hamatzil, with their source. Vegam, and also his kashrutson v'yisyachduson zu imzu, and also their binding and their unification one with the other. Ukmei she'omer achazeh. And as he continues in the Zohar over there and says afterwards, we'll begin the Ant Milgov, and because of the fact, the Ant Milgov, that you are above, up on top of them, therefore, call man the Afreish Kuli. What did you say over there? Call man the Afreish Chad Mechavrei Kilo Afreish Boch. As I said, we'll discuss it in a moment a little bit more in terms of measurement and all that. But first, to understand the words here. This is the Zohar, the piece of the Zohar that we say every Friday evening before Mincha. So it describes this whole Seder Hamshacha in the world. So he says that there are 10 spheres, and then the 10 spheres are interbound with each other, and they're bound with you. This binding with you is so profound and so fundamental that this is what he says here, that kol man the afrish kulhi, and anyone who separates chad mechavre, I'm saying by heart, chad mechavre, one from the other, kilu afrish boch, it's as if he were breaking away from you. Because the unity amongst the spheres and the unity of the spheres with their source is interrelated. It's one and the same thing. It's begin the Ant Milgov, because you are above them and you incorporate them. This is what permits their unification among themselves, and this is what ties them to you. So separating the spheres from one from the other is tantamount to breaking them away from their source. It's one and the same thing. This entire phenomenon, that there are individual spheres, and each one has its particular measure, and then that they are reunited and reunified, and they also unified with their source. All this hu al de hakav hamislabesh bohem, it is affected al de hakav via through because of the fact of the kav hamislabesh bohem b'teichom, that is imbued within them.
We talk about the Kav as being synonymous with Hashem, because we're saying, we just went from talking about Ein Sof, talking about the Kav, and we're
One second. So, this all is affected by the kav hamislabish b'teichom, that is imbued within them. All the way in the beginning, when we started learning this Inyan, we used the following illustration of this whole concept of separation and reunification, and that is the human being. The human being also consists of many koiches, and not only koiches, but actually each koyach functions within each individual, each particular keli, each particular limb. The hand, two hands. Why two hands? Gvura and chesed and gvura. 2 feet, netzach and hoid. Every particular koyach is really particularized, so to speak. It's identified individually to the extent that it can actually be contained in a separate keli, individual keli. There is perfect coordination and cooperation amongst all these entities, all these limbs. What effectuates this perfect coordination and cooperation amongst them? Why should the left hand have the right hand pick this up? So we have to look at it. I know there is an intuitive answer, but I'd like to break it down to a point where the question is a question, and then we get the answer. Then we have a meaningful answer. Because from a physical perspective, quote unquote, from the scientific view, the view of that does not recognize a spirit, sees only things from a physical, existential perspective, and each thing acts individually. The reason that the left hand would assist the right hand is because the left hand will benefit by the right hand picking this up. Effectively. They're independent things. As laughable as it is, this is where it's coming from. Why do two people cooperate? Because of the individual benefit. The fact that they live in the same world and that there is one element that unifies them, it's totally, they're totally oblivious to it. To the extent that yes, the left hand cooperates with the right, it's not cooperating with the right. It's intending for its own benefit. The right foot and the left foot both want to go swimming. And they know they can't get there individually. So they help each other to get into the water. So this exposes this principle that yes, the right hand and the left hand and right foot and they are different koiches. What the right hand can do, the left hand cannot do. And in a certain sense, vice versa. Chesed and Gvura are two different koiches. But while they're different koiches, they continue to represent their source, the nefesh, and not just for the purpose of cooperation, but the actual truth of the nefesh itself. What is chesed? A nefesh element. What is gvura? A nefesh element. That's the primary thing. Functionally, they're very different. But what do they stand for? They stand to the nefesh element. And because of the nefesh element, because of the nefesh element that is in them, this is what unifies them. This is what brings them to cooperate. To put it more focused, the left hand sees in the right hand the nefesh. The right hand sees in the left hand the nefesh. And this is why they recognize each other. Why do two people relate to one another? Because they see the godly truth in each.
Is this what we always said, that 1 and 1 is 2? Because they have one
Well,
source?
yes, okay, yeah. No matter how individualized things become, everything is rooted in the ultimate source, ultimate truth, and it exists because it represents an ultimate truth. If not for that, there would be no cooperation. Not for that, there would be no existence. But it's evident in the fact that there is such perfect unity. Discussions. Right, our time is up. I have to go back to Medina and so forth. So meet him tonight, approximately 8:30, at 679 Crown Street. 679 Crown Street is not approximate; it's exact. 8:30. I don't know. Okay. Have a good day, everyone.
What time is the Millennium Malka?
I hope in Mitzvah that we can get together at 7:30.
No.